And we are following breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ out of the NBA, where Ben Simmons will not play in the 76ers home opener against the Nets on Friday. As per The Athletic, three-time All-Star reportedly scheduled to participate in a workout today at the team facility. Instead, was treated for what they are calling back tightness. He is not expected to play now for an undetermined amount of time as well. Also told people he was not mentally ready as well. Of course, Ben Simmons over the summer saying that he never wanted to play for the 76ers again, yet did show up on October 11th. But it hasn't been smooth sailing for Ben Simmons and the Sixers since then. Let's welcome in our NBA insider and writer, Bill Reiter. Bill, I think we would have been more surprised if Ben Simmons had played in their game tomorrow.
Yeah, man, I think that's exactly right. And before this news broke, and talking to NBA sources today and this morning, every single executive, scout, person around the league that I talked to expressed growing levels of pessimism that this was going to get done anytime soon for Philly. In fact, one high-level executive described the situation in Philadelphia. He had recently talked to Daryl Morey, he told me, as a crap show, only he didn't use the word crap. It certainly looks like, and now this news out, that the sense around the NBA and what looks like the very obvious reality on the ground in Philadelphia is that this public divorce between Ben Simmons and the organization is going to get even uglier than it has been. It's going to drag out. And you said it, it is not anyone's expectations he's going to play for this team anytime soon.
I mean, over the summer, he was there in your hometown of LA, or where you live now, I should say, and, wasn't taking those phone calls from his teammates. And somebody said, hey, look, you got to get to camp. You got to get to the preseason there. Showed up on October 11th. But this is what we've seen since then. I mean, were they expecting anything else given everything he has said about not wanting to play for them?
Yeah, there's a lot of forces at play here. As I understand it, Daryl Morey, and this isn't a big secret, but he's really dug in his heels as he's talked to other general managers around the NBA, because there is interest in Ben Simmons for all the problems, for all the struggles, for all what looks like a lot of petulance, and just the on-the-floor issues, the fact that he passed up on a dunk in the postseason, that obviously his shooting leaves a lot to be desired. There are people, Amanda, out there and in the NBA who have decision-making power who would bring him into their organization if they thought the price was reasonable. And no one believes that Daryl Morey, the head of basketball operations in Philly, thinks that the price is reasonable. So you start there, you're going to be forced to try to deal with him. If Daryl Morey can't move him or won't move him because he wants too much of a return, Doc Rivers will be expected to make it work. His teammates would be expected to make it work. So I think the sense around the league was Simmons would come back. It would be awkward, but maybe they'd find a way to get him on the floor for a while because they all want the same thing, Simmons to be moved. But obviously it's gone a different direction.
We talked to Avery Johnson yesterday. He said, look, if I'm that coach, if I'm that GM, anybody, I'm telling him to go home, just stay there. And we're going to try to work it out. Obviously, they've tried to have him at practice, was suspended for that first game, not going to play in their home opener. If you were in their position, I mean, what would you do with Ben Simmons right now when it comes to him and his involvement with the team?
Yeah, well, if I were Daryl Morey in the front office in Philadelphia, I would lower my asking price and move him while I still could have. And you might have wanted to have anticipated that things were going to get ugly if you didn't do that. Where we stand now, it's really interesting because technically, Amanda, the fact that Ben Simmons reported, now there wasn't actual practice today, but the fact he showed up at the facility like he's supposed to, and then said he has back problems, technically speaking, means that he could be categorized as someone who's out because of injury. You have to pay those folks. And just speculating. In fact, I just got one text message right now from someone in the NBA as I just sort of look at it here while on the air, and this reflects what you would guess. I can't use the language here, but there is here in this one source, and I'm sure it's universal, skepticism as to whether Ben Simmons is actually hurt, whether his back actually did tighten up, or whether it's a ploy to try to get paid. So where they are now is they've got to try to find a way to move on from him, but that means Daryl Morey being willing to lower his price, and really that means you're willing to be held hostage by the way Ben Simmons is acting.
Lowering your price, what does that mean? What do you think is realistic that a team could offer for Ben Simmons?
Look, I think and I'm just going to make, this is not an actual person that sources have told me would be moved, but I think C.J. McCollum in Portland's a really good example. C.J. McCollum, not an all-star, but an all-star level player. That kind of a player, or maybe a couple role players. If you look into a team like the Indiana Pacers, for example, Indiana has a couple guys, and not 4 first-round draft picks. I had a GM describe to me a couple days ago the fact that Daryl Morey wants a James Harden-esque return. You're talking a superstar or near superstar, or at least all-star level player, and multiple draft picks. And this general manager from the Western Conference told me that that's not realistic, that that's not what Ben Simmons is worth. And that was true before Ben Simmons was acting the way that he was. So a singular player who's a big-time starter, a second or third best player on a team, or 2 or 3 really nice role players and maybe a first-round draft pick, not 4. I think that's the kind of return that was realistic before Simmons started pulling some of these shenanigans and some of this drama. Who knows what his value is now that he's saying that he's sort of injured. Maybe he is injured and he's been unable to practice, unwilling to practice.
We heard from Joel Embiid earlier in this week and kind of saying, I wish we could ask him where the comma was in his sentence. He said, I don't care about that man. Not sure if he was saying I don't care about Ben Simmons or was referencing the reporter there. But either way, it was just like, look, I'm kind of washing my hands of the situation and focusing on what I have to do. I mean, how did the 76ers, the players, handle this? Because you got all this sideshow, all this drama. It's filtering into practice, and they just want to play basketball. I mean, what do you do if you're that team?
You do exactly what they did in their opening night in New Orleans. You go out there, you win a basketball game. Reports afterwards, they went out and they had a celebration dinner together. I'm probably, Amanda, somewhat in the minority on this, but I think in the short term, Philadelphia can be just fine. They did win the most games in the NBA last year. I know Ben Simmons is a huge part of that, but it's not as if they have Joel Embiid and then a bunch of bums. They have a lot of guys. Tobias Harris is the guy that comes first and foremost to mind, who can play at a high level, who can put points in the basket, who can, I mean, you're talking about a Philly team that I think is going to be okay. So what they do is they go out and they try to win games and they put Simmons past them. But I think it's a really important question. And I had an agent point this out to me, that it's one thing for a front office and a player to not get along. And now publicly, like we've seen from Philadelphia, Doc Rivers and Ben Simmons, okay, that's pretty stark. But that's also typical because it's a business. Normally, players have each other's backs and don't really get involved when it's about money, even in holdout situations. And this agent pointed out, and a few other sources echoed this, the way that Embiid has responded to Ben Simmons, the way that it sounds like the team has responded by really not embracing him, to say the least, I think that speaks volumes about how far apart Ben Simmons is from the entire organization. And the fact that when the players in the locker room with you are part of that schism, it's very difficult to go back with any kind of normal process if and when he and Philly decide they think they can do that.
Bill, really quickly, before we let you go, do we see Ben Simmons on the court for the 76ers this season?
I mean, I'm the guy that took Ben Simmons sort of, I mean, seriously, but tongue-in-cheek a little, as my defensive player of the year because I thought he was going to play. That prediction came out 2 years ago, and it's already remarkably stupid, Amanda. So obviously my guess is not as good as the next person's. I thought that he would play. I thought that he would be out there. I can tell you that people I talked to yesterday thought that he would eventually be on the floor, and the few people that have texted me back over the last hour, another one just came in, are in pretty colorful language, highly skeptical of what Ben Simmons is doing and whether he'll ever play for Philly again. So I don't know, but I think if you put money down somehow that he never does again, the odds have increased greatly. You would win that bet.
Bill Reiter, thank you so much. It's an ongoing saga, the Ben Simmons saga. Of course, we'll keep you posted. I know you're getting those text messages, so we'll let you get back to your phone. We'll check in with you very soon, though. That is Bill Reiter informing us the very latest situation surrounding Ben Simmons. So there is the 76ers scheduled. Of course, Ben Simmons was suspended for that very first game, which was yesterday against the Pelicans in New Orleans. They host the Nets tomorrow night, 7:30 Eastern tip-off there. And again, he will not be playing in that game.